it's the most of the oracle bowl inscription are divination recorded and engraved on the tortoise shells and animal bones. That's why we call it 甲骨文. Okay, and now we have been found more than 4,600 oracles, including about 1,000 recognized, and the oracle is carved with a knife, very little in written, and because words are have not unified, so Chinese character components is not fixed. So there are many variable characters. Okay. And the next stage is bronze inscription. It refers to ancient inscription cast or carved on the bronze ware. You can see these pictures, and they are used from Shang, Zhou, and Qing, Han dynasties. And but the main findings are the words on the bronze ware of Western Zhou dynasty. And the characters of the oracle and the bronze characters, it's pictures instead of characters. And a few characters could describe abstract idea. And we have sun, moon, river, mountain, this kind of thing, which are easy to describe. But at that time, there is no characters to describe the abstract idea. So many strokes are very complicated and difficult to write and learn. You can see these pictures, they are not unified, so it's very hard. It's difficult to recognize and to learn how to write. And because it's so difficult to write and learn, the first change happened in Western Zhou dynasty, and the lines better proportioned and balanced, and the characters became more standard, and the shape getting square. And SUES script can also called script of Qing, including 大篆 and 小篆. And although 大篆was regular and standardized, and it has many strokes, which proved to be very difficult to write with the brush, and the main writing tool in ancient time. So it's later modified to 小篆 in the Qing dynasty, a much simple writing style. You can compare this picture with this picture. It seems more simplified. Okay. And at the beginning of Qing, the first emperor Qin Shi Huang contented the idea that the written script should be standardized in form because the character form were different from area to area in Zhou times. And actually, SEO script has gone out of use today. Nobody writes like this today. But there is one occasion where we still use SEO script. And that's when we make seals. These two pictures are two types of seals. One is called 英文, and the other is called 洋文. Okay, this seals full of Chinese flavor. And in order to make writing more time-saving, Li Si invited a new form, which was appreciated by the first emperor. It's called Li Shu. Okay, and the formation of the official script is an important turning point in history because it lays a foundation for the spiral shapes of Chinese characters. And it's said that the regular script emerged in the late Han period. It's a kind of more beautiful and simpler form, and could set a good example for writing. So it's called 楷书 in Chinese because 楷 means good example. You can see this picture. It's for our students, maybe it's easier to learn the stroke. You can see 天地日月 like this one. And the last stage is cursive script. Cursive script including 章草、金草、狂草, and all hard to recognize. If you see this picture, you even for our Chinese, it's also difficult for us to recognize what it's saying. Okay. And so Zhang Cao emerged at Zhang Emperor of Eastern Han, and Jing Cao emerged at the end of later Han period, and the Kuang Cao was created in the Tang Dynasty and was very difficult to identify and turned into a pure form of art with aesthetic value. So, 草书 the cursive script today it's a pure form of art with aesthetic value. Okay. And here's some facts to remember. China did not get unified until the Qing dynasty in 221 BC and by Emperor Qin Shi Huang. And that brought about the unification of Chinese character among all the 7 states for the first time. So if someone asks who was the first one to unify Chinese character, it was the Qin Shi Huang. Okay, and the Chinese character became stabilized with the appearance of 楷书, okay, in the Tang Dynasty, which is something very close to the written character we use today, although they are traditional Chinese, not the simplified Chinese at that time. And very soon after that, a person named Bi Shen, okay, in Song Dynasty, invited a kind of printing style, which is called the movable type printing system. In Chinese, we call it 活字印刷术, okay? And so the invention of this printing system, which used the movable components reproduce character, another writing style, which was more suitable for printing, was developed. And that's called Songti, which is exactly what we use today in typing with a computer. And the left picture are the movable components of the printing. And the right picture is quite interesting. If you have watched the opening ceremony of 2008 Beijing Olympic Games, probably you have some impression in this picture. Do you know what's this? Do you guys know what's this? It's
No
this.
idea.
Okay.
It's like assembly.
Yeah, it's a display of the movable type printing in the opening ceremony of the Olympic Games 2008. You see, these components is similar with this one. Okay. And if you are interested in it, you can search it on the internet. I think you may be impressed by this performance. And here I want to draw your special attention. Actually, each script have resulted in different style and schools of calligraphers. And for example, famous calligraphers such as Yan Zhenqing and Liu Gongquan left quantity of masterpiece for us. and the development of Chinese character grew into a high level. Okay. And the preface to the Archid Pavilion connection, in Chinese we call it 兰亭集序. It's one of the famous masterpiece. Okay, this one. Okay, as we have some idea about the evolution development of the Chinese character, the microscopic perspective, and now let's come to the microscopic perspective, the structure. Okay, the structure of Chinese character. Firstly, I will show you a video about how Chinese character work with the structure, and you guys may have an easy understand about what's the structure unit of the Chinese character. Okay, so guys, could you see the screen? Oh, sorry.
Yes, no shit.
Oh, sorry. This one. Okay.
Many people know that Chinese is written with symbols called characters, basically little pictures used to represent the different words in the language. But for those not familiar with Chinese characters, it can be hard to see why, for example, this means east, or why this one means uranium. And what makes it seem all the more difficult is that there are thousands and thousands of different characters that you need to know. But it's really not as complicated as it seems. All these tens of thousands of characters are made up of just a little over 200 basic pictures called radicals. Once you know what they mean, it's not that hard to learn all the rest of the characters. Now here's a commonly used example of how the radicals can fit together. Take a look at this one. It's supposed to be a picture of the sun. Back in ancient times, it was written like this, which looks a little more like a sun. Then consider this radical, which is meant to be a picture of a tree. In its earliest form, it was written this way, but maybe the modern version better resembles a tree. Now, when you combine the tree with the sun, you get this, which is the character for east. Why does it mean east? Because the sun rises in the east, and this is supposed to be the rising sun peeking through the branches of a tree. While this particular character uses only picture elements, most other characters also include a radical that shows you more or less how to pronounce them. Take this radical, for instance. It's meant to look like a jug, and it's one of the ways Chinese has to say because. And this may seem a little odd. It makes sense when you consider that if A happens because of B, you could say that A flows out of B the way water flows out of a jug. Now, this because character is pronounced yo in Mandarin, and so it's often used as a radical in other words that have the same or similar pronunciations. For example, the character for grapefruit is the tree radical combined with the yo radical. This is because the word for grapefruit is pronounced yo, the same syllable as because, but with a different tone. Or consider this radical. It's used for metal. It sort of looks like a mountain with mine shafts cut into it. When you add the metal radical to the yo radical, you get the character for uranium, since the Chinese word for uranium is also pronounced yo. This part picture, part phonetic method shows up in other writing systems, such as the ones used by the ancient Egyptians and the ancient Mayans. It's worth noting that back in the 1950s, the newly formed People's Republic of China simplified many of the characters to make them easier to write. For example, the character for dragon used to be written like this, which sort of looks like a dragon's head. But nowadays in mainland China, it's written like this, which is easier to learn, but doesn't look very dragon-like. By coincidence, China wasn't the only place where a communist revolution changed the way people write. When the Marxists came to power in Russia, they too made changes, cutting a few letters out of the Russian alphabet. But that's another story.
Okay, so maybe this video can show the Chinese character is pictographic characters. So here we will go to learn some Chinese structures. Okay. Okay. Chinese characters in general are composed of those dozen basic strokes, which have similar function to the letters of most European language, though they do not combine into syllables. They are 8 basic strokes. You can see this picture. Okay, dot. Okay, dot. Horizontal stroke, turning stroke. Okay, turning stroke. Okay, and then the hook stroke. Okay, hook stroke, and the right upward stroke. Okay, and the left downward stroke, vertical stroke, right down stroke. Okay, they are basic 8 strokes. And the Chinese character can be taken apart into different parts. Plus, many Chinese characters share the same parts, which we call the components or basic structural parts. Okay, in Chinese we call it 偏旁. Okay. The 26 English letters may be formed into words freely. Though Chinese characters have no letters, different structural parts may form different Chinese characters. And among Chinese characters, there are 1,300 basic structural parts, including different sounds, and 250 indicate different meaning. According to statistics, over 80% characters are formed in these days. This is some structural parts. Okay. So if you have read both the ancient Chinese book and the modern one, you guys may find an interesting phenomena. The ancient Chinese book is in vertical writing, and the modern one is in horizontal writing. So why Chinese character has these 2 styles? As you know, most language in words are written horizontally, like English, French, etc. But why ancient Chinese write character vertically? Chinese was originally written vertically instead of horizontally, and that also influenced writing in some countries like Japan, Korea, Vietnam, and Singapore. And the Japanese still use vertical writing today. So vertical writing is popular among Chinese people who use traditional Chinese now. Like people in Hong Kong, in Taiwan, in Macau, and some overseas Chinese. And now why? Firstly, due to the fact that Chinese character originally was written in bamboo. You can see this picture. The character was written in bamboo. in bamboo slips. And it's common practice that people wrote vertical from the right to the left instead the left to the right. And in this way, ancient Chinese wore very long and wide sleeves. Okay, you may see in the movies or TV series. So people dress like that when they write. They have to take care of not to spot the characters which is already written characters on the right. And it's also make it easier to fold and unfold the bamboo slip from the left to the right. Okay. And it's not until the May 4th movement at the beginning of the 20th century that some scholars begin to realize the advantage of horizontal writing and horizontal printing. And on January the 1st, 1955, Chinese people saw the newspaper printed horizontally for the first time. And that was a language reform for Chinese government made to accommodate to the simplified Chinese character and some occasionally use of some foreign language, especially Arabic and Roman numerals, and they have to be written horizontally. And the vertical writing today in mainland China is only used on some special occasion, for instance, in couplets, calligraphy, decoration, etc. In the previous slides I have shown you, you can see there are some calligraphy. The character put here is we read these characters from the right to the left. Okay. And now let's come to how written Chinese has survival. Why did I ask this question? Because as you know, Chinese character, as two other languages of ancient Egyptian and Sumerian, was one of the oldest language in the world, while the other two have gone out of use for a long time and have died for a long time. But Chinese character is still active in use. So how has it survived? And that's the question you guys may think about. Here, I will give you 3 reasons to explain it. The first one, as I have mentioned, Chinese have simplified the traditional Chinese character. Actually, in order to increase the efficiency of writing, people have simplified Chinese character many times in history. The following example, this picture, is an example of evolution of one character. Did you guys know this Chinese character? Not yet? Okay. It's the Chinese character 车, which means a vehicle. Okay. This example is quite clear with simplification of the Chinese character 车. It's more easy for people to memorize and write. From the very ancient time, you can see it's very pictographic, like the picture, okay? And it's simplify, and then it's like this one. It's easy for Chinese people to write and remember, okay? And from pictures to characters, Chinese character has gone through many stages in simplification, and that's how it sustained its own life. That's one reason why written Chinese has survival through years. And the second one for Chinese character is to sustain its life is the new and the creative use of the old or even dead characters. Can you guess this character? What's the meaning of this character?
No.
Talking like
Someone crying?
yes,
Like
that.
this one? Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah, actually, this is called zhong, pronounced like this zhong. Okay, it's a pictographic character. The original meaning is bright and daylight from a window, but this character has disappeared in our life for a long time. But then, very recently, it came back to time again. But when it comes back, it has a quite different meaning, which is completely different from the original one. Now, when we use this character zhong, okay, which pronounced zhong, okay, it means that feeling impressed or frustrated. You can see like this one, this face, okay. So probably it looks like a face of a person with an unhappy impression, okay. And this kind of creative use of the old characters is rejuvenate the vitality of this character, and it became another reason why written Chinese has survived. And the third reason is frequently used in local dialects. Okay, for example, there is a local cuisine in Xi'an. Okay, Shanxi province called biang biang mian. Okay, biang biang mian. This is a kind of noodles, but very spicy. Okay.
Yeah.
And here I want to choose the most interesting and the most difficult Chinese character. Oh, this character. This is the most difficult Chinese character. Okay. If you learn how to write this character, you will astonish your Chinese friends, definitely. Okay, I will I will show you how to write it, okay? I will show you. Wait a moment.
I think this is so difficult for us.
Yeah. So maybe you can try.
It will take forever.
And surprise your Chinese friends. We can divide it into many components and make them together. It will be more. It will be easier for you to learn. Oh, sorry. Okay. Can you guys see the screen?
Yes, Los.
Okay, great.
My name is Kevin, and you're watching Monkey Abroad. So I asked some of you to let me know whether or not it's worth it to break down this character Byung, including this little mnemonic jingle. And enough of you said you'd like to learn it. So not only am I going to break that character down and all of its components, but I'm also going to share with you a little bit of the legend and lore behind this character. Technically, the most complex Chinese character is Na. It's a 36-stroke character, which means the stuffed up sound your nose makes when you have a cold. And while it's impressive with its 36 strokes, I don't think it compares to the beauty and outrageousness of this whimsical character, Byung. There's so much behind the legend and lore of Byung. It's like the unicorn of Chinese characters. It's just so cool. And if you learn how to write it, you can really impress your friends. So without further ado, let's break down this amazing character. So there's the Mian and the Ba. the roof, and 8. When you combine those two, it makes the xue, which is like a hole or a cave. Then in the middle, there's yan, which is speech. And to the left and right of yan, there's yao, which is, it just means small. Then in the bottom in the middle, there's ma, which is horse. And to the left and right of ma is jiang, which is like to grow. To the left, there's a moon. And the bottom, there's a heart. And to the right, there's a knife. And then last, there's a chuo, which means to walk. It's the final radical that you add. And now the character Biang is complete. This is a mnemonic device to help you remember how to write this character. And it goes, 一点北上天，黄河两道弯，把这大张口，沿着往里走，东一扭，西一扭，左一长，右一长，中间加个马王，心这底，右这旁，6个勾搭挂麻糖，坐个车车广咸阳。I didn't come close to saying that perfectly, but I think you get the idea. One thing that's cool about this jingle is that there's lots of imagery in it that induces a feeling like you're in Xi'an or you're in Shanxi. 6个勾搭挂麻糖, which is something that you can see if you go to Xi'an. It's really cool. Some really interesting imagery for where this noodle, where this character Biang comes from. And now one more thing about this character that makes it really interesting is the legend behind it. I've asked lots of people from Shanxi, I've read about this legend, and it always seems to be a different story from whoever tells it. So here's one interesting story that I'd like to share with you that I like to believe is the true origin of where this character came from. So there was a student walking in Shanxi and he was hungry and he heard this biang biang sound from a noodle shop. And so he walked in and he saw what looked amazing, the soup with all these different ingredients in it. So he ordered a bowl and he ate it and it was so delicious. Then he realized he paid the chef. So he asked, "Oh, what is this dish called?" The chef said, "Biang biang mian." And so the kid said, "Do you know how to write Biang, the character?" And the chef said, "No, actually I don't." And so the kid said, "Oh, I'll teach you how to write it, and then my meal is free." And before the chef had any time to respond, the kid took out a piece of paper and a brush and started writing all of the characters that he could think of to comprise the most complex character. And thus, Biang was created. And when the chef saw it, he was just grinning from ear to ear, so happy. So he just tore up the check. Even if it's not included in any modern dictionary, it's still the most interesting Chinese character because there's an amazing story behind it. And it's just so beautiful and fascinating and fun to write. So now, thank you so much for watching. If you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe. Leave a comment. Let me know what you think.
Okay, so this is the most difficult Chinese character. I have sent the link and I have sent the link to the group, and you can practice how to learn it. Okay, and I think maybe it will be a surprise for your friends or your family if you can learn the most difficult Chinese character. Okay. Let's continue. Okay, and the last one for Chinese character survives in these days is the conscious protection by Chinese people. To protect the Chinese character and the Chinese calligraphy, Chinese government has built the National Museum of Chinese Writing in Anyang, Henan province, and this is the website for the National Museum of Chinese Writing. If you guys have some interest in it, you can log in this website and find more information. And besides building the special museum to protect Chinese character, the TV shows follows. For example, one TV show named the Hero of the Chinese Character. In Chinese, we call it 汉字英雄, which was quite popular in China. It's not only a competition of knowledge about the Chinese character, but also brought up some good social effect especially draw people's attention to know more about Chinese characters. And also,